Hey guys, my name is Dexter, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about how to set boundaries, what boundaries are exactly, and how to say no so you can stop people pleasing and build self-respect and become more assertive. Now, when it comes to the topic of people pleasing, what a people pleaser is exactly is when someone places the approval of others above the approval of themselves. And what this can manifest into is resentment and erode their own self-esteem in the process, because being agreeable actually supersedes your own self-worth. Now, the important thing to realize when it comes to being a people pleaser is if you don't want to be a people pleaser, you have to learn how to set boundaries. And boundaries are when you draw lines between yourself and others around you. And I used to actually conflate being agreeable with being kind, and they are not the same thing. So when it comes to people pleasing and setting boundaries, boundaries are just a way to know what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. And instead of it being like a cage or a prison where you're setting up barriers for other people, it's more about respecting yourself and placing yourself first without hurting other people, and realizing that you need to prioritize your own well-being and your own mental health in the process. And throughout this video, what you're going to learn is that there are going to be people in your life who enjoy you being a people pleaser, because when you're agreeable, they're able to convince you to do many different things that actually come from a place of them getting what they want, but sometimes that results in you losing out for what you want to do in life. So that's something that's very important when it comes to being a people pleaser, is realizing how much you start to externalize your self-worth to the validation of others, which erodes your own sense of self. Now, what are some signs that you haven't set boundaries for yourself? These could include always saying yes to things, even at your core when you know you actually want to say no. And this could be as simple as someone asking you out for a dinner date, and in the moment, you didn't know how to respond in a way because you wanted to avoid conflict or confrontation. And instead of having that conversation and just saying that you would not want to go, you ended up agreeing. And what that did is it actually builds resentment within yourself and to the other people. But what you have to realize is that when you actually are agreeing to something that you don't want to, you're actually being dishonest. So when you're dishonest, you're actually being dishonest to the people around you. And you're also getting the short end of the stick because you're doing something that you don't really want to do. So that's something that's very important when it comes to being a people pleaser, is realizing how saying yes to everything actually can ultimately take away from being able to say yes to more things for yourself. Another thing that happens when you don't have boundaries is it's easy to build resentment, to be burnt out, and actually disconnected from yourself, because you are abandoning yourself in the process, because you're placing the needs and wants of other people above your own. And that can cause some internal struggle. And in many cases, this actually can cause people to become passive aggressive, and they don't even realize it. Because if you're always agreeing to things that you don't want to do, then over time, you actually become angry at yourself because you've agreed to it. And you're angry at other people because you didn't want to be there for whatever event or situation that you agreed to. So you might start to internally blame other people when in fact it was your own doing to begin with. So it's very important to kind of see that and have that self-awareness to see that you are doing that to yourself when you don't set boundaries and you're too agreeable. Now let's talk about how to actually set boundaries. Boundaries are essentially just your own values of what you really want out of life. And that could be your time, your energy, your autonomy, your sense of peace, and all these things boil back down to what you truly feel at your core is right for you. And when you have those values for your own boundaries, what that allows you to do is to have non-negotiables in what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and then communicating that across clearly to the people around you. Now, one way to notice when your boundaries are being crossed is just in times when you are feeling drained or resentful. These are good signals that you are actually passing over boundaries that you didn't want to cross. And that's what's kind of sucking that energy from you and causing you to have that internal struggle. I do want to be clear that when you start to set boundaries, it can feel uncomfortable, not only for yourself because it's different from what you're usually used to, which is agreeing, but you might actually get some pushback from the people around you because they are not used to you actually saying no or disagreeing or choosing your own path. But you just have to realize that in this discomfort, you're actually growing through the process. And the net result is that people actually respect you more because if they can't trust your yes, then how can they trust your no? And what that means is if you always say yes to everything, then when you say yes to things that you want and you also say yes to things that you don't want, then they can't trust your no either. So the result of having boundaries is that you also become more honest and authentic with the people around you. And they also begin to adhere to those boundaries because they know whether they're crossing them or not when you start to say no when your boundaries are crossed. And one thing that's important to realize when it comes to your boundaries is the people who may have been taking advantage of you having a lack of boundaries, they might not like it, but that's going to be a clear signal of people who actually have good intentions for you versus people who have been taking advantage of your kindness or niceness in this case. So that's a really clear signal of what happens. You're going to have a little bit of discomfort in the process of saying no and practicing saying no, but the end result is that people are going to see you in a different light and you're going to actually build more of a backbone for yourself and start to respect yourself more in the process. Now, one of the best ways to actually practice your boundaries is to say no to things. And you can always start out small. These can be very low stakes things like people asking you to meet up for an event and you say, unfortunately, I can't because I have XYZ thing going on. Just starting small and practicing saying no will begin to increase your self-trust and self-reliance instead of just agreeing to everything. And what that will do is it will grow over time for you to be able to say no easier and easier to things. And when you are saying no to things that you don't want to do and that you know are not in line with your core values or benefiting you, then what you're doing is you're actually saying yes to yourself more. So that's one of the powerful things about learning how to say no. And the net result is you also give yourself back a lot of the time that you've been spending on things that you didn't want to do just because you were merely agreeing to everything as a people pleaser. Another way to take a pulse check when you're saying no is if you are saying yes to something, but you do it just because you feel guilty, then that's a sign that you should be saying no. Because if you're saying yes to it just out of guilt, you're being dishonest with that person or the people that are asking you, and you're also not being honest with yourself. The very powerful thing about being able to say no is that you begin to gain self-trust in your own decision making on what you want and what you don't want. And what that does is it gives you more clear goals for the path that how you want to live, whether that is increasing your own autonomy, focusing on the tasks that you want to do, or living life the way that you want to live it. And in that process, when you have those boundaries set, that gives those like guardrails that protect you from people who may not have the best intentions for you. And when they start to see that you have those lines that they can't cross, then you naturally begin to also weed out the people that might not be serving you in your life and vice versa. So saying no actually becomes a very powerful thing for curating the best people that you want to have in your life to begin with. Because as people pleasers, it's easy to agree to everyone, which means you might be agreeing to people that don't necessarily have the best intentions for you. And what that does is you don't have as much of an internal compass that you are sharing with other people what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept. So a bunch of people come into your life and take advantage of you, even though you kind of know better that you don't want these people in your life. So that's one of the kind of impacts that will happen when you stop people pleasing, you start saying no, and you have those boundaries, because you become more clear with your inner voice and who you want to be and how you want to live your life. Ultimately, setting boundaries for yourself isn't about controlling other people or building a cage around yourself. It's more about being able to respect your own time, needs, and wants in a way that aligns with your values. And even though it can be difficult at the start, as you practice it like a muscle, it gets easier over time. And this ultimately helps you to be more aligned with who you really want to be in your life. And in the process, you build greater self-confidence, self-esteem, and respect for yourself. And the secondary order effects of this is that people around you begin to know where your boundaries are, and they will begin to respect those boundaries because you have communicated those things across to them clearly. So let me know in the comments section below, what are some boundaries that you have begun to set for yourself? And how is that working out for you in terms of becoming more assertive and taking back the power and control for yourself in your own life? So I hope this helps you. My name is Dexter. I'm a mindset coach, and I talk about self-awareness, decision-making, as well as living a purpose-driven life. And if you feel like you gained value from this content, please don't forget to subscribe and also share this information with someone else who you think this could also add value to. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.